Atlanta was buzzing in a way only Atlanta could. Not with music, not with parties, not with the usual rhythm of nightlife, but with whispers that started in the dim corners of Instagram comments and spread like wildfire to TikTok reenactments and Twitter threads that never seemed to end. And at the heart of it all was one picture, one caption, one performance that stopped the city cold. Tamar Braxton, lying in a hospital bed, her face half hidden under bandages, her caption dripping with tragedy. I almost died. Found in a pool of blood. My nose is fractured, my teeth are missing. Those words weren't just an update, they were a declaration, a weapon. 4 teeth, gone. A broken nose. A body battered. For hours, the city clutched its chest. Fans flooded her comments with emojis of prayer hands, candles, hearts, begging God to keep her safe. Blogs scrambled to report. YouTubers rushed to upload breaking updates. Tamar had captured sympathy in one post, and the world paused for her, but Atlanta doesn't pause for long. Even while the prayers poured in, doubt started rising like smoke. People didn't just want to know what happened. They wanted to know who had been with her that night, who saw her last before the hospital photo. And when the answers started circling, when receipts crept into the daylight, one name started catching all the fire: Funky Dinova. Hours before Tamar's bloody confession, Funky had been celebrating his birthday with her. They had been spotted, together at dinner at the lounge, laughing under neon lights. And by morning, the timeline flipped. Tamar was cast as the broken victim. Funky was painted as the shadowy villain. Imagine waking up to that. Going to bed after what felt like an ordinary night with a friend. And by dawn, the internet is dragging your name into hashtags, TikToks, and memes calling you dangerous. Funky's comments were flooded. You were the last one with her. What did you do to Tamar? Say something. At first, Funky tried to laugh it off. He had been through storms before. He built a career surviving shade and stirring mess. But this was different. This wasn't gossip. These were accusations that painted him as someone who hurt a woman. The kind of accusation that sticks like blood on a shirt. By the time Funky went live, more than 7,000 people were already waiting. Not fans, not supporters, prosecutors. And he gave them what he had, his truth. Dinner at Ruth's Chris, drinks at V12 Lounge, laughter, dancing, then he dropped her off at home. That was it. He didn't go inside. He didn't linger. He saw nothing unusual. But the problem wasn't what he said. It was what Tamar didn't say, because Tamar never posted to clear him. She never typed the simple words that could have stopped the mob. My friend had nothing to do with this. Instead, she stayed silent. And in that silence, Funky was left to burn. But Tamar didn't stop at silence. She fed the fire with crumbs of mystery. I can't wait to tell y'all, she teased, as if her near-death experience was just the prologue of a bigger story. Fans thought she was building to a confession, a revelation about who hurt her. But when she finally unveiled the secret, it wasn't an attacker. It wasn't healing. It was a project, a music video, a brand new EP. And front and center of her rollout was Mendeecees Harris. That was the twist that turned sympathy into suspicion. Tamar claimed she nearly died, claimed her body was shattered, and yet within days she was promoting glossy visuals with a man already drowning in scandal with his wife Yandy Smith. Out of every co-star she could have chosen, she chose a married man accused of infidelity, a man whose marriage was already cracking under rumors. Why him? Why now? The answer was obvious. Controversy sells. And Tamar had turned her blood and bandages into marketing. For Funky Dinova, that was the breaking point. He had been patient at first, waiting for her to defend him, believing she would do the right thing once she healed. But when the rollout dropped, he realized he had been sacrificed. He wasn't a friend. He was a pawn. His second live was filled with fire. I was collateral damage in a 2-bit PR stunt, he declared. He held up receipts, texts Tamar had sent him during her supposed hospital stay. Casual, playful, friendly, not the words of a woman with shattered teeth. Friend, oh my God, she had typed, as though narrating confusion for a storyline. Funky asked his viewers, if you were me, what would you think? Who texts like that if they're broken and bleeding? The betrayal wasn't just about lies. It was about loyalty. Friendship means protection, especially when the mob comes. Tamar had every chance to clear him. She didn't. Instead, she let him dangle while she teased fans with mystery posts and countdowns. She weaponized silence and made his pain her backdrop, and the choice of Mendeecees Harris only sharpened the wound. Tamar could have chosen anyone. She chose a man married to Yandy Smith, a man already smeared in gossip. She knew the headlines it would spark, the speculation it would fuel. She wanted the mess because mess sells. And in choosing him, she dragged Funky, Yandy, and herself into one scandalous triangle. Fans began connecting dots. Old clips resurfaced. Tamar Braxton's words, "We spoiled her. We let her get away with everything. We created a monster," echoed across timelines. What once sounded like sibling frustration now felt like prophecy. Tamar wasn't just dramatic. She was strategic. Not surviving chaos, but orchestrating it. And the saddest part? She didn't need to. Tamar's voice was powerful enough to fill arenas. Her talent was undeniable. But instead of letting her gift lead, she leaned into manipulation. Instead of letting music carry her, she let blood and betrayal steal the stage. By now, Atlanta was split. On one side were loyal fans, convinced she was misunderstood, that the world was cruel, that maybe her story was true. On the other side were skeptics, drained and disgusted, asking how many times one woman could cry wolf before people stopped running. The answer seemed clear. The wolf cries weren't echoing anymore. They were ricocheting back, hitting Tamar's own reputation. When Funky went live again, his patience was gone. His voice was steady but heavy with sadness. "This woman was supposed to be my friend," he said, "and she sat there and let me be eaten alive while she dropped a damn music video. What type of person does that?" The comments didn't hesitate. Selfish. Narcissist. Desperate. Tamar's sympathy had curdled into disgust. And Tamar's response? She leaned into victimhood. Posts about healing, about peace, about growth. But fans weren't fooled. Healing doesn't mean sacrificing your friend. Peace doesn't mean leaving someone to be accused. Growth doesn't mean silence when you could speak the truth. Her words, once soft shields, now read like excuses. Even her sugary line, "No matter what he says, I love Miss Funky Deneva," rang hollow. Funky clapped back. "Love me? You don't love me. You used me." And that was the heart of Part 1 storm. Love, friendship, loyalty, all turned into props for Tamar's storyline. Funky realized it. The fans realized it. And slowly, the city realized it too. What started as a story about missing teeth had become a story about missing truth. The time the second wave of chaos hit, the prayers had turned into questions, and the questions had hardened into accusations. Funky Deneva, once the man defending himself against a sea of suspicion, was now the one driving the narrative. His patience had evaporated. His second live wasn't calm or explanatory. It was fire, a public reckoning. He looked into the camera with eyes full of exhaustion and betrayal. "This woman was supposed to be my friend," he said, voice low but cutting. "And she sat back and let me be torn apart, while she smiled for a rollout. What kind of person does that?" The comments lit up instantly. People no longer demanded answers from him. They supplied their own. Selfish. Narcissist. Clout chaser. Tamar's carefully constructed sympathy was collapsing under the weight of her silence. But Tamar didn't fight back with clarity. Instead, she pulled out the same playbook that fans had seen too many times before. She began posting about peace, about healing, about protecting her spirit. Beautiful words on pastel backgrounds, captions about growth and light. It was an old trick. When cornered, play the victim, wrap yourself in spirituality, talk about choosing peace. But this time, it rang hollow. Fans filled her comments with sarcasm. Where was this peace when Funky was being accused? Healing doesn't mean lying. You're hiding behind God because you don't want to face the truth. Her silence no longer looked enlightened. It looked manipulative. And then, right when the storm was at its peak, Tamar dropped the bomb that proved Funky's accusations right. She unveiled Mendeecees Harris as the star of her project Heartbreak. Retrograde, glossy images, dramatic teasers, his face plastered beside hers like they were some new scandalous duo. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. A married man already fighting rumors of cheating placed directly in the center of Tamar's so-called comeback just days after she claimed to nearly die in a pool of blood. If her hospital post had been Act 1 and her silence Act 2, this was the Act 3 reveal. And it was messier than anything Atlanta had seen in months. The optics were nuclear. Yandy Smith, a woman already battered by whispers about her marriage, suddenly became a silent, unwilling character in Tamar's performance. People flooded her page. How do you feel about this? Why is your husband standing with Tamar? Did you know about this? Every post Yandy made, no matter how unrelated, was dissected for clues. Some fans begged her to walk away. Others accused her of quietly tolerating humiliation. But whether she spoke or not, the damage was the same. Tamar had dragged her into a spotlight she didn't ask for. And Mendeecees himself? His silence mirrored Yandy's, but silence only made things worse. If he had spoken, he might have controlled the narrative. By staying quiet, he looked complicit. Was he in on the stunt? Did he agree to Tamar's mess? Or was he just another pawn in her game? The questions spread like wildfire. Tamar had thought she was creating intrigue. Instead, she was spreading, suspicion like gasoline on an open flame. For Funky DeNeva, it was vindication. Everything he had claimed, that this was a stunt, that he was collateral damage, that Tamar's silence was strategic, suddenly looked undeniable. He didn't need to convince anyone anymore. The rollout with Mendeecees was proof enough. The audience who once doubted him now sided with him, calling Tamar manipulative, messy, and desperate. Bloggers who had defended her began uploading long breakdowns of her pattern of behavior. YouTubers replayed her hospital post alongside her music video teaser, exposing the hypocrisy in sharp contrast. TikTokers reenacted her hospital story, mocking it as bad acting. The sympathy that had once saved her was gone, and the Braxton family's old warnings returned to haunt her. Tamar Braxton's voice in old clips resurfaced everywhere. We spoiled her. We let her get away with everything. We created a monster. Fans treated those words like prophecy. Suddenly, Tamar wasn't just a victim of circumstance. She was a mastermind of manipulation, a woman who thrived not in music but in chaos. The saddest part was how unnecessary it all was. Tamar didn't need to fake tragedy to sell music. She had one of the strongest voices of her generation. She could have led with talent. Instead, she chose to lead with mess. She wrapped herself in bandages not for healing but for attention. She chose to let a friend burn while she teased fans with silence. And in doing so, she turned her own comeback into a funeral for her credibility. By the end of the week, the tone of Atlanta had shifted entirely. The city wasn't whispering anymore, it was shouting. Tamar had gone from sympathy to mockery in record time. Funky had transformed from suspect to survivor, the one who told the truth when no one else would. And Mendeecees and Yandy had been scorched by a fire they didn't light. One tweet summed it up perfectly. She wanted us to buy the music, but now we're just buying popcorn. What was supposed to be Tamar's resurrection had become her downfall. And the worst part? It wasn't over, because Funky DeNeva wasn't finished. He leaned into his live, his voice steady with promise. Since you had no problem letting me burn, I'm going to let the truth burn. And with that, the city waited. The stage was set for the final act. By the final week, the storm no longer felt like gossip. It felt like a trial, and the jury was the entire city of Atlanta, with the internet sitting in the front row. Funky DeNeva had gone from accused to accuser, and this time he wasn't holding anything back. His final live wasn't laughter mixed with shade. It was a testimony, sharp and merciless. He played back the timeline with surgical detail, reminding everyone how Tamar went from posting about near death to promoting a project within days. He replayed her cryptic captions, her silence, her carefully timed reveal of Mendeecees Harris. And then he said what everyone was thinking but hadn't dared to voice. This wasn't survival, this was performance. The words landed like a gavel hitting the desk. In the comments, people wrote, "We believe you. She's exposed. She used you." What began as his attempt to defend himself had transformed into something bigger, a public unmasking. He wasn't just clearing his name. He was redefining Tamar's. Tamar Braxton, for her part, stayed locked in her cycle of deflection. More posts about peace, about love, about choosing to rise above, but each one felt emptier than the last. Her audience no longer saw wisdom in her silence. They saw avoidance. They saw calculation. Every pastel-colored quote about healing was ripped apart in the comments. Healing doesn't mean lying. Peace doesn't mean letting your friend drown. Growth doesn't mean faking blood. She had once used those words as a shield. Now they had turned into mirrors, reflecting her hypocrisy, and the damage wasn't contained to her. Mendeecees Harris, once just the subject of cheating rumors, now had his name cemented in Tamar's stunt. The rollout that should have been about music now looked like a collaboration in manipulation. Fans asked whether he knew, whether he agreed, whether he was willing to let Tamar exploit his marriage for attention. His silence only fueled the speculation. Yandy Smith, caught in the middle, became another victim of Tamar's chaos. Every time she posted, fans demanded answers. Some pitied her, some mocked her. But either way, she was being dragged into a scandal she hadn't signed up for. Tamar hadn't just risked her own reputation, she had set fire to other people's lives. That was the part that stung the culture the most. It wasn't just the lie about blood or teeth, it was the collateral damage. Funky, Mendeecees, Yandy, even her sisters, whose old warnings were now viral sound bites. Tamar didn't just build her comeback on her own pain, she built it on the backs of people who had trusted her. And that betrayal was bigger than any hospital photo. By now, the blogs that once hyped Tamar had switched sides. They uploaded compilations of her contradictions, her patterns, her history of playing the victim. TikTokers mocked her hospital story with exaggerated reenactments. Twitter dragged her daily, and the once loyal fanbase had fractured, many admitting out loud that they were tired. Too old for this. Too much drama. We can't keep defending her. The sympathy that had once defined Tamar's brand was gone. In its place stood exhaustion. Funky Dinova ended his live with a chilling promise. He leaned into the camera, his voice steady but heavy. "Since you had no problem letting me burn, I'm going to let the truth burn. And when I'm done, there won't be anything left to hide behind." It wasn't just anger, it was betrayal turned into fuel. And the audience, once skeptical, now roared with support. They weren't just watching anymore. They were choosing sides. The fallout was brutal. Tamar's EP, once hyped as her rebirth, became a meme. Streams plummeted. Reaction videos mocked the rollout. A single comment captured the moment perfectly. "She wanted us to buy her album, but we're just buying popcorn." She had turned her own comeback into a circus, and the audience had stopped clapping. And yet, the most haunting part was the cliffhanger left behind. Because the question wasn't whether Tamar lied about this one stunt. The question was how many more she had lied about before. If she could stage a story about near death, what else had she performed? How many friendships had she sacrificed for clout? How many allies had she thrown under the bus? And how many more would she burn before she finally stood alone? The truth was ugly. Tamar hadn't just faked a tragedy. She had faked loyalty. She had faked friendship. She had faked the very trust that once made fans believe in her. And those wounds cut deeper than any broken nose or missing teeth. By the end, Atlanta wasn't asking if Tamar would recover. They were asking if she even could. Because talent might win you applause, but credibility is what keeps it. And Tamar's credibility had been shattered, piece by piece, until nothing was left but doubt. And that's where the story ends. Not with Tamar triumphant, not with Funky destroyed, not with Yandy silenced forever, but with a city staring at the ruins of trust and asking a simple question. Was this the moment Tamar Braxton's reputation finally ran out of second chances?